The prison ship Times, Eternal Judgment Times, drifted through the void like a metallic fortress, its hull scarred by countless battles across the galaxy. Inside its most secure containment bay, behind walls of pure neutronium and energy shields that could stop a dying star, something stirred in the darkness. Captain Zephyr 9 of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force stood before the massive viewing window, his forearms crossed behind his chitinous back. His insectoid eyes reflected the soft blue glow of the containment field as he watched the creature within. Even through the multiple layers of protection, he could feel the raw power emanating from the beast. "Sir," came the nervous voice of Communications Officer Krill, her tentacles twitching with anxiety. "The High Council is requesting another status report on the prisoner." Zephyr 9 didn't turn away from the window. "Tell them what I've told them for the past 3 cycles. The Void Dragon of Kepler 442 remains contained." Barely. In the darkness beyond the energy field, a single, massive eye opened. It was larger than a starship's viewport, glowing with an inner fire that seemed to burn with the heat of 1,000 suns. The creature it belonged to was legend made flesh, a being so ancient that some claimed it had been born in the first stellar furnaces after the universe began. Its scales were darker than the space between galaxies, and each one was said to be harder than compressed diamond. The dragon had destroyed 17 colony worlds before the combined fleets of 5 galactic civilizations had finally managed to trap it. Even then, it had taken the sacrifice of an entire fleet to create the gravity well that had pulled the beast from its rampage through hyperspace. The casualties numbered in the billions. "How long until we reach the execution facility?" Zephyr 9 asked, still not turning from his vigil. 72 standard hours, sir," replied Krill, her voice barely above a whisper. "The Council has approved the use of the stellar dissolution chamber. They want to make sure there's nothing left to regenerate." The dragon's eye fixed on Zephyr 9 through the layers of protection. For a moment that lasted an eternity, the two beings stared at each other. Predator and guardian, destroyer and protector. Then the eye slowly closed, and darkness returned to the containment bay. Zephyr 9 finally turned away from the window, his mandibles clicking in what his species considered deep thought. "Double the guard rotations. I want sensors on maximum sensitivity. If that thing so much as twitches wrong..." An alarm suddenly screamed through the ship's corridors. Red warning lights bathed everything in crimson as the ship's AI announced in its calm, mechanical voice, "Unknown vessel approaching. Configuration does not match any known design in the galactic database." "What?" Zephyr 9 rushed to the command station, his claws dancing across the holographic controls. The main view screen shimmered to life, showing the approaching craft. It was tiny compared to their massive prison ship, barely the size of an escape pod. The design was strange, almost primitive by galactic standards, smooth curves and odd angles that seemed to follow no logical engineering principle. Most puzzling of all, it was broadcasting on frequencies that hadn't been used for interstellar communication in over 1,000 years. "Sir," Krill's voice was high with confusion. "The vessel is transmitting identification codes, but they're ancient. Pre-galactic alliance. The species designation reads as human." "Human?" Zephyr 9's mandibles clicked rapidly. "That's impossible. The human species went extinct during the Great Plague centuries ago. Everyone knows that. Nevertheless, sir, that's what the computer is reading. And sir, they're requesting permission to come aboard." Before Zephyr 9 could respond, another voice cut through the communication system. It was soft, musical in a way that seemed to resonate in frequencies none of their species could naturally produce. "Hello there, big ship. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez, aboard the research vessel, Times New Horizon **. We're responding to your distress beacon." "Distress beacon?" Zephyr 9 looked at his communications officer. "We haven't sent any distress beacon." Krill's tentacles were flying over her console. "Sir, I'm not detecting any beacon transmission from our ship, but..." She paused, her 3 eyes widening in surprise. "Sir, there is a faint signal coming from the containment bay. It's almost undetectable, but it's there. The dragon, somehow, the dragon was calling to them." "Dr. Vasquez," Zephyr 9 spoke into the communication system, trying to keep his voice steady. "This is Captain Zephyr 9 of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force vessel times Eternal Judgment *. You need to leave this area immediately. We are transporting an extremely dangerous prisoner." There was a pause. Then the human's voice came back, tinged with what sounded like concern. "Prisoner? Oh my. Are they injured? Do they need medical attention?" "Injured?" Zephyr 9 couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Dr. Vasquez, the prisoner we're transporting is the Void Dragon of Kepler 442. It has destroyed 17 worlds and killed billions of sentient beings. It's the most dangerous creature in known space." Another pause. Then, impossibly, the human laughed. It was a sound unlike anything in the database, warm, genuine, completely without fear. "Oh, you must mean Starfire." "Yes. We've been looking for him for quite some time." "Starfire?" Zephyr 9 felt his legs go weak. You know this creature? Know him? He's why we're here." "Captain, with respect, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. May we come aboard? I have my daughter with me, and she's been very worried about Starfire." The communication channel closed, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Zephyr 9 stared at the small human vessel, his mind reeling. A daughter? They had brought a child to find the most dangerous creature in the galaxy? "Sir," Krill whispered, "what are your orders?" Before Zephyr 9 could answer, the ship's sensors detected movement in the containment bay. On the security monitors, they watched in amazement as the massive dragon lifted its head. For the first time since its capture, the creature moved with something other than rage or malevolence. It was almost as if, "It's excited," breathed the security chief, a three-eyed Regalian whose species had evolved specifically to read emotional states in dangerous creatures. "The dragon. It's actually excited." Zephyr 9 looked from the monitors to the small human ship approaching their docking bay. Against every regulation, against every instinct screamed at by a career spent in the peacekeeping force, he found himself giving an order that would change everything. "Open docking bay 7. Allow them to come aboard." As the time's Eternal Judgment *''s massive docking bay doors slowly opened to admit the tiny human vessel, none of them could possibly imagine what was about to unfold. In the containment bay, the dragon that had terrorized the galaxy began to make a sound none of them had ever heard before. It took the ship's computer several minutes to identify the noise. The Void Dragon of Kepler 442, the most feared predator in known space, was purring. Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped out of her ship's airlock into the pressurized docking bay, and every security protocol on the ship immediately flagged her as a potential threat. Not because she appeared dangerous, quite the opposite. She was small by galactic standards, barely reaching the chest height of most species, with long dark hair tied back in a simple ponytail, and wearing what appeared to be civilian clothing. Her skin had a warm, golden tone that seemed to emit its own soft light under the harsh ship lighting. But it was her companion that made every security officer reach for their weapons. Walking beside Dr. Vasquez, holding her hand with complete trust and confidence, was quite possibly the smallest sentient being anyone on the ship had ever seen. The human child couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 years old. With bright, curious eyes and hair the color of starlight, she was wearing a simple yellow dress that seemed absurdly cheerful against the military gray of the ship's interior. "That's a child," whispered Security Chief Krex, his 3 eyes focused intently on the small human. "They brought a child onto a prison transport." "I can see that," Zephyr 9 replied, his mandibles clicking nervously as he approached the 2 humans. "Dr. Vasquez, welcome aboard the Time's Eternal Judgment *. I must say, I'm surprised you brought your daughter aboard a military vessel, carrying such a dangerous prisoner." Dr. Vasquez smiled, and something in that expression made the hardened military personnel around her relax despite themselves. "Thank you for allowing us aboard, Captain. This is my daughter, Lucy, and as I mentioned, we're here because of a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Zephyr 9 felt his patience beginning to wear thin. "Dr. Vasquez, the creature in our hold has destroyed 17 worlds. Yes, I heard. Doctor. Vasquez's expression grew sad. But Captain, did those worlds have any inhabitants when they were destroyed? The question caught Zephyr 9 off guard. Well, no. Actually, they were all uninhabited systems. But the property damage alone, those weren't property, Captain. Those were nests. Silence fell over the docking bay like a heavy blanket. Doctor, Vasquez continued, her voice gentle but firm. The worlds that Starfire destroyed were nest planets, where his species lays their eggs. But they had all been strip-mined or terraformed by various corporations. He was destroying empty shells, trying to find even one intact nesting ground. Lucy, who had been quietly observing the various alien species around her with the fearless curiosity that only children possess, suddenly tugged on her mother's hand. Mama, can we go see Starfire now? He must be so scared being locked up. In a moment, sweetheart, Doctor, Vasquez replied, then turned back to Zephyr 9. Captain, Starfire isn't a monster. He's the last of his kind, and he's been desperately searching for a place where his mate can lay her eggs before she dies. The nesting season only comes once every 1,000 years. Mate? The security chief's 3 eyes blinked in unison. The reports never mentioned a mate, because your scouts never found her. She's been hiding in the asteroid fields near Kepler 442, growing weaker every day. If Starfire doesn't find a suitable nesting ground soon, Dr. Vasquez's voice trailed off sadly. Zephyr 9 felt his worldview crashing down around him. But the destruction, the rampage through 3 star systems, the desperate actions of a creature facing the extinction of his entire species, Dr. Vasquez said softly. Imagine if you were the last of your kind, Captain. How far would you go to ensure your children had a chance to live? Before Zephyr 9 could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life with the voice of the monitoring station officer. Captain, you need to see this. The prisoner. It's doing something we've never observed before. On the screens throughout the ship, they watched as the massive dragon pressed its snout against the energy barrier of its containment field. The barriers held, but something unprecedented was happening. The dragon's scales, which had been black as the void between stars, were beginning to change color. Slowly, starting from its snout and spreading backward, they were turning a deep, rich gold. Oh my, Dr. Vasquez breathed. He can sense Lucy's presence. Lucy bounced excitedly on her toes. Can we go see him now? Mama? Please? He's been waiting so long. Zephyr 9 looked from the small human child to the changing dragon on the monitor, then back again. Every regulation, every protocol, every piece of training in his career told him that what Dr. Vasquez was suggesting was impossible, dangerous, and absolutely insane. And yet, looking at the child's bright, hopeful face, and the dragon's transformation from void black to gleaming gold, he found himself wondering if perhaps the galaxy's most feared predator had simply been misunderstood. Dr. Vasquez, he said slowly, are you absolutely certain that creature is safe to be around your daughter? The human woman smiled again, and this time there was something ancient and knowing in her eyes. Captain, Lucy has been visiting Starfire since she was 3 years old. She's the only being in the galaxy he'll let close enough to touch him. On the monitor, the golden dragon threw back its massive head and let out a sound that reverberated through the ship's hull. It wasn't a roar of rage or a cry of pain. It was pure, overwhelming joy. The journey through the corridors of the Time's eternal judgment times became an impromptu parade. Word had spread throughout the ship with the speed that only military gossip could achieve. Humans were aboard, alive humans, and they claimed to know the dragon. Crew members found excuses to be in the corridors as the small group made their way toward the containment bay, all eager to catch a glimpse of the legendary extinct species. Lucy skipped alongside her mother, completely oblivious to the sensation she was causing. She waved cheerfully at each alien they passed, offering bright hellos that seemed to short-circuit the linguistic processors of beings who had never heard human speech before. A massive Gorillian engineer, whose species was known for their strength and typically serious demeanor, actually giggled when Lucy complimented the glowing patches on his fur. "Fascinating," muttered Dr. Keth, the ship's xenobiologist, who had joined their group uninvited but was too valuable to dismiss. The acoustic frequencies in human speech patterns seem to trigger positive responses across multiple species, and the child's pheromone signature. It's registering as safe to every biosensor on the ship. Zephyr 9 walked ahead of the group, his mind racing with protocols and procedures. "Dr. Vasquez, I have to ask, how exactly did your daughter first encounter the dragon? Our reports indicate that any being within 50 meters of the creature becomes overwhelmed with primal terror." Dr. Vasquez smiled at the memory. "Lucy wandered away from our research camp on Kepler 442c. I was studying the mineral compositions of the destroyed worlds, trying to understand the pattern. When we found her 3 hours later, she was taking a nap curled up against Starfire's front leg." "She was what?" Several voices chorused the question. "Taking a nap," Dr. Vasquez repeated calmly. "When I found them, Starfire had curved his neck around to shield her from the wind. He'd been there for hours, not moving, making sure she stayed warm." Captain Zephyr 9 stopped walking so suddenly that Communications Officer Krill bumped into his back. "Dr. Vasquez, are you telling me that your 3-year-old daughter simply walked up to the most dangerous predator in known space and decided to use it as a pillow?" "Well," Dr. Vasquez considered this. "That's a rather dramatic way to put it, but essentially, yes." Lucy looked up at the captain with her bright, innocent eyes. "Starfire isn't dangerous, Mr. Captain. He's just sad. Really sad." The group continued walking, but the atmosphere had changed. The corridor seemed quieter, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. As they approached the containment bay, a low, rhythmic sound began to emanate through the hull, a thrumming that seemed to resonate in their bones. "What is that sound?" asked Krill, her tentacles writhing nervously. Dr. Keth was frantically checking his instruments. It's coming from the dragon. The frequency is unlike anything in our database. It's almost like a lullaby," Lucy finished helpfully. "He always sings when he's happy." They reached the entrance to the containment bay, where a full security detail waited in formation. These were the ship's elite guards, beings chosen for their ability to remain calm in the face of ultimate danger. Yet as they stood before the massive blast doors, every one of them looked nervous. Security Chief Krex approached Zephyr 9. "Sir, I must protest this action. The containment protocols exist for a reason. If something goes wrong, then we'll deal with it," Zephyr 9 said, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. "But Chief, look at your readings." Krex glanced down at his security scanner, then looked again in disbelief. "The dragon's stress indicators are decreasing. Its heart rate is stabilizing. This is impossible. The creature has been in a constant state of combat readiness since we captured it." Through the thick walls, the lullaby-like thrumming grew louder, more complex. It was a sound that seemed to bypass their auditory processors and speak directly to something deeper, something primal and peaceful that existed in all living beings. "Starfire knows we're here," Lucy announced unnecessarily, bouncing on her toes with excitement. "Can we go in now? Please?" Dr. Vasquez knelt down to her daughter's eye level. "Remember what we talked about, sweetheart. Starfire has been locked up for a long time. He might be more scared than usual." "I remember, Mama. I'll be extra gentle." Zephyr 9 felt as though he was stepping off the edge of a cliff as he entered his authorization codes into the containment bay access panel. Around him, the security team raised their weapons to ready positions, though he privately doubted that their energy rifles would do much more than annoy something that had survived the combined firepower of 5 galactic fleets. The massive blast doors began to cycle open with a low pneumatic hiss. Beyond them lay a chamber that could have housed a small moon, its walls lined with energy barriers and sensor arrays. And in the center of it all, impossibly vast and beautiful, was the dragon. Starfire was even more magnificent than the recordings had suggested. His body was easily 300 meters long, from snout to tail, covered in scales that now gleamed like molten gold in the chamber's lighting. His wings, folded against his sides, could have provided shade for a small city. But it was his eyes that captured everyone's attention, ancient, intelligent, and filled with a mixture of hope and desperate longing that was almost too painful to witness. The dragon's massive head turned toward the entrance as they stepped into the containment chamber. For a moment that seemed to last forever, the great beast studied the assembled group. His gaze passed over the armed security team, lingered briefly on Dr. Vasquez, then settled on the small human child standing fearlessly at the front of the group. "Hello, Starfire," Lucy said in her clear musical voice. "I'm sorry it took so long to find you. Mama and I looked everywhere." The dragon's response was immediate and overwhelming. The thrumming lullaby that had been building throughout their journey suddenly exploded into a symphony of joy that made the entire chamber resonate like a vast musical instrument. The golden scales along Starfire's neck and head began to shimmer and change, cycling through colors that had no names in any galactic language. "By the 7 moons," breathed Dr. Keth. "The dragon is. It's displaying. The chromatic patterns are indicating extreme positive emotional states." Starfire's massive head began to lower toward the group, moving with careful, deliberate slowness. The security team tensed, weapons tracking the movement, but Dr. Vasquez placed a gentle hand on Chief Krex's arm. "It's all right," she said softly. "He won't hurt anyone, not while Lucy is here." The dragon's snout, easily the size of a small transport vehicle, came to rest on the chamber floor just a few meters from where Lucy stood. This close, they could all see the incredible detail of his features: scales the size of dinner plates, each one perfect and unique, nostrils that could have swallowed a person whole, and eyes that held the wisdom of millennia. Lucy walked forward without hesitation, her small feet making barely a sound on the chamber floor. The adults watched in stunned silence as the child approached the most dangerous predator in known space, with all the casual confidence of someone greeting a beloved pet. "You've gotten bigger since last time," Lucy observed, reaching out to place her tiny hand against one of Starfire's scales. "And your colors are so pretty now. Are you feeling better?" The dragon's massive eye, larger than Lucy's entire body, focused on her with an intensity that should have been terrifying. Instead, the great pupil dilated with what could only be described as pure affection. "I know you've been looking for a place for your babies," Lucy continued, her voice taking on the serious tone that children use when discussing important matters. "Mama and I found a really good place. It has lots of pretty crystals and warm rocks. Just like you like." The thrumming song that Starfire had been producing suddenly shifted to a lower, more questioning tone. "Oh yes. It's real this time," Lucy assured him. "No machines, no mining, no people except us. And there's a big lake where your lady friend can rest." The effect of these words on the dragon was instantaneous and powerful. Starfire's entire body began to glow with an inner light, and the color shifting of his scales became so rapid and complex that the chamber's sensors couldn't keep up with the display. "Mama," Lucy called over her shoulder, not taking her eyes off the dragon. "Can you tell Starfire about the new planet?" "My words aren't big enough." Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "Starfire, we've found an uninhabited world in the Goldilocks zone of a stable star. The geological composition matches your nesting requirements: perfectly crystalline formations, geothermal activity, and a mineral-rich atmosphere. Best of all, it's protected under the Galactic Preservation Act. No corporation can touch it." The dragon's head lifted slowly, his ancient eyes focusing on Dr. Vasquez with an intensity that made several security officers take involuntary steps backward. When he spoke, his voice was like distant thunder, each word formed with careful precision in the common galactic tongue. "You speak truth, not false hope?" Dr. Vasquez met his gaze steadily. "I speak truth, Starfire. I give you my word, as a mother." Something in that last phrase seemed to resonate with the great dragon. His head lowered again until his snout was nearly touching the chamber floor, close enough that Lucy could have reached out and touched the tip of his nose. Which, of course, is exactly what she did. But she didn't stop there. Standing on her tiptoes, The tiny human child leaned forward and placed a gentle kiss on the end of Starfire's massive snout. It was such a small gesture, a child's innocent affection offered to a friend, but in that moment, everything changed. The dragon's entire body went completely still. The color shifting stopped. The thrumming song ceased. For a heartbeat that seemed to last forever, the chamber was filled with absolute silence. Then Starfire began to cry. The tears that fell from the dragon's ancient eyes were not water, but liquid crystal that rang like bells when they struck the chamber floor. Each drop contained the compressed emotion of centuries: loneliness, desperation, fear. And now, finally, hope. "Oh, Starfire," Lucy whispered, her own eyes filling with very human tears. "It's okay. Everything's going to be okay now." The security team watched in stunned silence as the most feared predator in galactic history lowered his massive head completely to the floor and closed his eyes, allowing a 6-year-old human child to pat his snout with the same gentle affection she might show to a house pet. Captain Zephyr 9 felt his legs give way beneath him as the full magnitude of what he was witnessing hit him. For months, they had been transporting what they believed was a mindless destroyer, a creature of pure malevolence that needed to be eliminated for the safety of the galaxy. Instead, they had been torturing a desperate father who was watching his species go extinct. The dragon's voice, barely above a whisper now, rumbled through the chamber. "Little star singer, you came back to me." Lucy smiled, her small hand still resting on his snout. "I promised I would, didn't I? And I always keep my promises." From somewhere deep within the ship, alarms began to sound. Not emergency alarms, these were different, more urgent. As the alerts continued to cascade through the ship's systems, Communications Officer Krill's voice crackled through the intercom. "Captain, we're receiving an urgent message from Galactic Command. They're ordering immediate termination of the prisoner. A battle fleet is en route to intercept us." Dr. Vasquez felt her blood run cold. "Captain, you can't let them destroy Starfire. Not now. Not when we're so close to saving his species." But before Zephyr 9 could respond, the dragon raised his great head and looked directly at the captain. When Starfire spoke, his voice carried the weight of ages. "Captain of this vessel, I have a request." The entire chamber fell silent. Zephyr 9 found his voice with difficulty. What do you want?" "Release my mate from her hiding place. Let her come to the nesting world. Do this, and I will surrender myself to your authorities when the task is complete." "Starfire, no," Lucy protested. "That's not fair." But the dragon's decision was made. "Little star singer, my kind must continue. That is more important than my life." As the sound of approaching warships began to register on the ship's sensors, everyone in the containment bay realized they were facing an impossible choice: save the last hope for an ancient species, or follow orders that would commit genocide against beings who had never truly been their enemies. The decision, as it turned out, would not be theirs to make alone. The bridge of the time's eternal judgment times had become a chaos of activity as the incoming battle fleet drew closer. Admiral Korath's image dominated the main view screen. His scarred Thanatosian features twisted with impatience as he addressed Captain Zephyr 9. "Captain, you have exactly 17 minutes before my fleet arrives. The prisoner is to be terminated immediately. Those are direct orders from the High Council." "Admiral," Zephyr 9 said carefully, "there have been some developments in our understanding of the situation." "I don't care if the beast has learned to compose poetry," Korath snarled. "The dragon dies. That's final. And Captain, if you're experiencing any difficulties in carrying out these orders, I'll be happy to handle the matter myself once we arrive." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Around the command center, the crew exchanged uncertain glances. In the space of a few hours, everything they thought they knew about their mission had been turned upside down. "Sir," Communications Officer Krill said quietly, "Dr. Vasquez is requesting permission to speak with you urgently." "Put her through." Dr. Vasquez's voice came through the intercom with barely controlled desperation. "Captain, I know what you're thinking, but please listen. There's something you need to understand about human history with dragons. Dr. Vasquez, I appreciate your concern, but, Captain, the reason humans survived the plague that was supposed to extinct us wasn't because we found a cure. It was because dragons saved us. The bridge fell silent. On the view screen, the tactical display showed Admiral Koreth's fleet growing larger by the minute. Dr. Vasquez continued, her words coming faster now. The plague was artificial, Captain, created by a species that no longer exists, designed to wipe out any race that showed potential for interstellar expansion. Humans were dying by the billions when Starfire's ancestors found us. They shared their immunity, passed down through genetic markers that required direct contact to transfer. Dr. Keth, who had remained in the containment bay with monitoring equipment, added his voice to the communication. Captain, I've been analyzing the child's interaction with the dragon. The pheromone exchange. The quantum resonance patterns. It's not just emotional bonding. There's an actual symbiotic relationship here. Explain, Zephyr 9 ordered. Dragons and humans evolved together, Captain. Not on the same worlds, but in response to the same cosmic threats. When a dragon bonds with a human, both species become stronger. The dragon gains emotional stability and enhanced cognitive function. The human gains immunity to quantum-level diseases and extended lifespan. In the containment bay, Lucy was still sitting next to Starfire's great head, her small hand resting on his snout. The dragon's massive eyes were closed, but the gentle thrumming of his lullaby continued to resonate through the ship. Mama, Lucy said softly, Starfire wants to show everyone something. Dr. Vasquez looked at her daughter with concern. What do you mean, sweetheart? He wants to show them why dragons used to take care of people, but he's scared they won't understand. Starfire's great eye opened slowly, focusing on Dr. Vasquez. Starsinger's mother, may I share memory with your daughter? She can show others what truly happened to your species. Dr. Vasquez hesitated. Memory sharing between humans and dragons was ancient, largely forgotten, and potentially dangerous. But as alarms continued to sound throughout the ship and the approaching fleet drew closer, she realized they were running out of options. Do it, she said. Lucy placed both hands on Starfire's snout and closed her eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft, golden glow began to emanate from the point of contact between the human child and the dragon. The glow spread, encompassing both beings, and suddenly everyone in the containment bay could see what Lucy was seeing. The vision that filled their minds was both beautiful and terrible. They saw Earth as it had been 1,000 years ago, cities burning, humans dying in the streets, as an invisible plague consumed everything in its path. They watched as great shadows fell from the sky, and dragons, dozens of them, landed among the dying humans. But these weren't the monsters of galactic legend. These dragons moved with careful grace, their great forms crackling with healing energy as they touched the sick and dying. Where dragon claws touched human skin, the plague retreated. Where dragon tears fell, the dead returned to life. The vision shifted, showing the aftermath. Humans and dragons working together to rebuild civilization, sharing knowledge and wisdom. Dragons teaching humans to reach for the stars. Humans teaching dragons the value of hope and dreams. Then came the great betrayal. A galactic confederation, fearful of the human-dragon alliance, had introduced a new plague, one designed to break the bond between the two species. Dragons began to die first, their great hearts unable to bear the loss of their human companions. As the dragons died, the humans they protected became vulnerable again. The few dragons that survived went into hiding, protecting the last human colonies in secret. But as centuries passed, and the humans developed their own technology, the dragons retreated further, becoming legends, then myths, then forgotten entirely, until only Starfire and his mate remained. The vision ended, leaving everyone in the containment bay shaken and silent. On the bridge, Captain Zephyr 9 and his crew had experienced the shared memory through the ship's neural network, and the impact was profound. By the Seven Suns, whispered Chief Medical Officer Zara, a healer-class Centauran, whose entire culture was built around preserving life. The dragons weren't destroyers, they were guardians. On the main view screen, Admiral Korath's fleet was now visible to the naked eye, their weapons charging for the final approach. Starfire's voice rumbled through the ship's communication system, somehow bypassing all security protocols. Admiral Korath, I know you can hear me. I know what your people believe about my kind. But before you carry out your orders, I ask you to consider this. No. I can Alamakain. I can Alamakain. I can Alamakain. I know you can hear me, people. 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 I know you can. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen, his expression furious. Dragon, you will not delay your execution with words. Prepare to. Your homeworld of Thanatos 9. Starfire interrupted, his ancient voice carrying absolute certainty. It suffers from what your people call the dying wind, a plague that kills your young before they can mature. You have 12 grandchildren, Admiral. How many of them are still alive? The color drained from Admiral Korath's face. How could you possibly know that? Because the dying wind is the same plague that nearly destroyed humanity 1,000 years ago. And I know how to cure it. 7. The bridge of Admiral Korath's flagship fell silent. The dying wind had been the scourge of Thanatos 9 for 3 generations, killing millions of children and threatening the extinction of their entire species. The best medical minds in the galaxy had declared it incurable. You're lying, Korath said, but his voice lacked conviction. Admiral, Lucy's clear voice cut through the communication channel. Starfire doesn't lie. Ever. He can't. Dragons are too old and wise to lie. On the view screen, they watched Admiral Korath's expression cycle through disbelief, hope, and desperate need. Finally, his voice came through the speakers, barely above a whisper. What would you need? Time, Starfire replied. Time to reach my mate and bring her to the nesting world. Time for our young to be born. The cure is in their first breath. Admiral, dragon hatchlings produce a quantum-level antibiotic that can cure any artificial plague. And if we let you go to this nesting world, you'll share this cure? Not share, Admiral. Give freely. As my ancestors did for humanity. The communication channel fell silent as Admiral Korath considered the implications. Around him, his bridge crew watched their normally decisive leader struggle with a choice that could save or doom his entire species. Finally, the Admiral spoke. Dragon, if you're lying to me, if this is some kind of trap. Admiral, Dr. Vasquez interrupted. What does your heart tell you? Look at your sensor readings. Is this creature showing any signs of deception? On Admiral Korath's bridge, the biometric scanners were painting an impossible picture. The dragon's vital signs showed no indication of stress, no neural patterns associated with deception. If anything, the creature seemed to be experiencing a profound state of peace. Sir, Admiral Korath's tactical officer reported. The dragon has just transmitted coordinates to an uninhabited system in the outer rim. Long-range sensors confirm the presence of a suitable nesting world. Exactly as described. Admiral Korath closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 2 civilizations resting on his shoulders. When he opened them again, his decision was made. Fleet Formation Delta, he ordered. We're escorting the prison transport to the coordinates provided by the dragon. The reaction from his bridge crew was immediate and vocal, but Korath silenced them with a gesture. My children are dying, he said simply. If there's even a chance that this creature can save them, then we have to take it. In the containment bay of the Times, Eternal Judgment *, Lucy clapped her hands together with joy. Did you hear that, Starfire? We're going to help your babies be born. Did you hear? 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 The dragon's response was a symphony of happiness that resonated through both ships. His scales cycled through every color in the spectrum, and for the first time since his capture, Starfire's massive wings spread slightly, stretching muscles that had been cramped for months. Little Star Singer, he said, his ancient voice warm with affection. Would you like to see something special? Before Lucy could answer, Starfire's great head turned toward the containment bay's main viewport. His eyes began to glow with an inner fire, and suddenly the space beyond the ship lit up with a display that took everyone's breath away. Through the darkness of space, answering Starfire's call, came his mate. She was smaller than Starfire but no less magnificent, her scales shimmering with colors that seemed to contain entire galaxies. As she approached the ship, her song joined with Starfire's, creating a harmony that made every being who heard it remember what it felt like to be truly at peace. "She's beautiful," Lucy breathed, pressing her face against the viewport. "What's her name?" "Moondancer," Starfire replied. "She who flies between the stars and brings hope to the darkness." Captain Zephyr 9 found himself standing beside the small human child, watching as the two dragons began an intricate aerial dance around their ships. After a career spent believing in the necessity of containing dangerous creatures, he was witnessing the reunion of two beings whose love transcended species, time, and understanding. "Dr. Vasquez," he said quietly, "what happens now?" "Now, Captain, we help them build a future. Not just for dragons, but for every species in the galaxy that needs hope." As the combined fleet set course for the nesting world, with two ancient dragons leading the way, Lucy settled back against Starfire's warm scales and began to sing a human lullaby that her mother had taught her. The dragon listened with careful attention, memorizing every note, every word. It was a song about coming home. 3 months later, when the first dragon hatchlings emerged from their crystal nests, their joyful cries carried the cure for 17 different plagues across the quantum spectrum. The galaxy learned that day that sometimes the greatest threats are really the greatest gifts, waiting for someone brave enough to offer a kiss instead of a weapon. And in a small research station orbiting the nesting world, a 6-year-old girl named Lucy learned to fly on the back of baby dragons, while her mother documented the return of an ancient alliance between humans and the guardians of the stars. Admiral Korath kept a photo on his desk of his 12 grandchildren, all healthy and laughing, playing with a dragon hatchling whose scales shimmered like liquid starlight. Whenever young officers asked him about the strangest mission of his career, he would show them that photo and tell them about the day a human child taught the galaxy that love is the most powerful force in the universe. And in the depths of space, wherever there was suffering or plague or hopelessness, two songs could sometimes be heard on the quantum frequencies. One, the ancient voice of dragons; the other, the bright sound of human laughter, working together to heal a galaxy that had forgotten how to dream.